welcome to Beacons in the 505. My name is Roger Gallegos. I'm the founder and owner of Beacon Marketing. This is the series that shines a light on local businesses here in Albuquerque and throughout central New Mexico. I'm hoping to get through all of New Mexico soon, but for now, we're going to focus on our own little pocket of the Southwest. Today, I have Joe and Rita Powdrell from Mr. Powdrell's Barbecue House. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. How are you doing today?
Doing well.
We're doing well. Yourself?
I've already been talking with them off camera, so to speak, through Zoom. So it's been a fascinating conversation. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. So hopefully we can pick up to where we're at pre-recording. For those of you guys who may not, now I grew up with Powdrell's Barbecue always being there. I grew up in the Valley. You guys had down there. So I'm familiar with you guys. And I have a hard to believe that anybody from Albuquerque would not be familiar. But just in case, for people who are not familiar with Powdrell's Barbecue, let our audience know who you guys are and what you guys do.
Well, we're the administrators, owners right now of a business that has its history originating from the South. My father's grandfather was doing barbecue in Louisiana, and they migrated west, as a lot of people have that are here now, from East Texas to West Texas. We came to Albuquerque in 1958, and we've always had barbecue as a part of this family's lineage in some form of business, small, temporary, part-time, etc. And we started the business here in 1962, and which connected us with the lineage of barbecue in New Mexico. There were 3 or 4 different barbecue people that we knew, African American. We knew of those people, and so we kind of caught in and rode that. And we probably have a longer duration than most of them, but we brought barbecue, a style of barbecue here from Texas. And actually, we've been up to 4 stores at one time. We're down now to 2. We've been a major player in the food service and hospitality industry in New Mexico. We've been at the state fair. We've been at every major state fair in the country. In New Mexico. The balloon fiesta, we were on the ground floor of that. Those kind of things gave us a lot of high visibility. And that's why our customer base, we attributed to being around a long time and being involved in New Mexico's very, very high visible, high profile events. And right now we have 2 stores, and we're still operating, dealing with what African American businesses across this country, in particular New Mexico, are dealing with.
Well, I can tell you, you guys, for me, as I say, you guys to me are an institution when it comes to barbecue in Albuquerque. I know it's like one of those things, when you think of certain things, you think of like a burger here in Albuquerque, Lottaburger comes to mind, or you think of breakfast burritos, maybe Golden Fry comes to mind. For me, barbecue, like I know when I go to you mentioned the balloon fiesta at the state fair, turkey legs are my thing. Like if you have a turkey leg, I'm gonna get that. And it's like Powdrell's. My wife and I, we always would go. She laughs. She goes, "What are you looking for?" I said, "Where's Powdrell's? Do they move in? Are they there?" You guys, I go get a turkey leg. It's like one of those things where you may try other barbecue places, but it's only to be like, how does it stack up to this? Like it's for me growing up. Michael Jordan was the best basketball player, so that would be that. No one's ever going to beat that. I feel like that's kind of barbecue for me. Powdrell's. It's always would be. I may try something else, just kind of try it, but it's never going to quite match up to you guys. So thank you so much for being here in Albuquerque and kind of providing that experience. But one of the things that we were talking about, because and you guys, you alluded to this, barbecue is kind of just your way of it's the avenue by which you provide the service, but it's really like you provide this cultural identity to African Americans here in Albuquerque in a way for people to be successful. Rita, I know you were speaking about that, the history going back to the Civil War of Albuquerque playing a role in ownership of African Americans and businesses. How does that legacy continue today, and what are some of the struggles that you guys still are seeing within African Americans businesses?
Well, I think the early businesses that came after enslavement, after the Civil War, started in Albuquerque in the late 1800s, so like the 1870s. And so we're very fortunate to stand on the shoulders of the people who came before us to progress African American businesses and our culture forward in the state of New Mexico. So when businesses first came to this state, things were segregated, and African American businesses within Albuquerque were used in the Green Book. So people of African American lineage coming through, going to California or wherever, knew where to stop, where the boarding houses were, where the restaurants were. If they were coming on the railroad and had to stop, they knew where they could stay because the lodging was segregated. So we're in that legacy of coming from quite a bit of oppression and working forward. And like we were speaking, Mr. Powdrell's Barbecue House started in 1962. So we were on the cusp of the civil rights movement, and we were on the cusp of a change in attitude that was coming to this country and New Mexico. So being a part of the legacy that came before us and the struggles that came before us, and being in that lineage to move forward to this point today, where we're still seeing some of the social fights for equality and humanity still going on. And we're still seeing the difficulty that African American businesses have with the economic and banking system of this country, which we had and which new businesses of African American lineage are still having. So we've just been very fortunate, you know, to come in when we've come in and to have in before us these wonderful barbecue restaurants that we were able to tie into.
You know, I think what's real crucial to that is that you be conscious of the experiences that those people who came before you had. You're likely to experience some of those same challenges, you know, and I have to credit Powdrell. My parents were very conscious of segregation. They were conscious of having no access to capital, you know, and so we came into the business knowing the people who were doing the same thing that we were doing before. Consciousness is really important. And so we came in and intended to operate our businesses knowing that those things were not only preceded us, but they're likely to follow us. And then we caught a ride with America in a big social change. When Michael Jackson and all that started to come in, you know, the riots across this country, Martin Luther King getting killed, major movement in this country. It's kind of like what's going on right now. We were in place, is why people we're so notarized to some degree. When that change got made, people started to marry across the ethnic board. You know, people relaxed a little bit. It affected it. We saw an impact in our business. We saw that impact, but we were conscious of it too. Consciousness, as I'm saying, was really important that we be conscious of it. That way we can take it and use the experiences to our advantage and understand why we are progressing to the degree that our barbecue per se, and I think our barbecue is as good as anybody's, but it wasn't our barbecue really that made the business impact. It was what was going on socially, and then barbecue being associated to African Americans. Put all that together, and us being conscious of it, that had a lot to do with it. Had a lot to do with it.
I believe that that history to me is fascinating because I'm born and raised, grew up here in Albuquerque. My mom says that we could trace our family back 3 to 4 centuries here in Albuquerque, and I didn't realize the length of that history of African American owned businesses. It goes all the way back to the late 1800s, and the role that it played in having in the Green Book. So I think one of the things, one of the reasons I'm doing this series is to educate myself, so I become more knowledgeable about this. How can people who may see this be more conscientious and then actually help to take action to make the playing field for African American owned businesses to be more equal? Because I believe that, for me, the small business community is a passion of mine, because I believe this is where the strength of any city or town or community is going to be, is it's the small business community, because it provides jobs, it provides diversity, it provides a unique take on barbecue, on marketing, on coffee, on pastries, whatever it may be, on fashion. And so you need a strong, vibrant community. But the more diverse and the more different representation that you have within that community is also important. So how can people be more conscious, not just of African American owned businesses, but Hispanic owned, and any other type of group that you want to look out there? How can people make themselves more aware and then become an advocate and help support those businesses?
Well, one of the things I think, I'm with the African American Museum and Cultural Center of New Mexico, and I think one of the things is history. People, when they look at the African American community, they think we're such a small percentage. And so our contributions to the state of New Mexico, which are very significant. We were part of the homestead movement. We've had water utility companies and newspapers and construction companies. And so knowing the uniqueness of the history of the people who inhabit our state, knowing each other's history, being conscious that there is a history to know, I think is really important to understanding our diversity and understanding the strength of that diversity and how unique we are as a city and as a state.
You mentioned small business. Small business nationally is about 83% of this country's business community. Inside the African American experience, small businesses probably get labeled to almost, I'm going to do a conjecture here, almost 80 to 95 of the businesses inside the African American community are small businesses, if not more than 95. And that makes small business mean something very different to African American people. A higher percentage of our businesses are small business. So how small business is interpreted and getting treated in America and New Mexico is very significant. How small business is getting treated. Secondly, your consumer base. We come out of the South, Texas, where particularly during segregation, where your customer clientele, for the most part, was 80 to 90% African American. You come out of Georgia, you can survive in an environment that's 40%, a million to 1.5 million African American people live in Georgia. You can almost rely on an African American consumer base. When you come west, you can't do that. You can't do that. You've got to put out a product, you've got to put out a service that is acceptable, receptive to a very, very mixed and a very, very diverse consumer base. We are 2%. I would say our consumer base, African American, is probably about 10 to 15%. And I've seen it being lower than that. It's coming up now because the awareness is coming up. But it's unique. It's a unique experience to do the product that we do in this environment where your African American consumer base is 2% of the state's population, about 3% here in Albuquerque, maybe. So that means how you relate, how you are received by the other ethnicities is very significant. Getting the differences that we've had historically, getting people past them where they feel comfortable about coming to your establishment and buying your product. If I can say, Powdrell has been very good at what it's doing. We create an environment that draws a consumer base from every ethnic every cultural difference in New Mexico. And if you can't do that, not only with barbecue, you can't do that with any product that an African American sells. You're going to have a difficult time.
Well, I don't care who you are and what you're selling. If you've been in business for nearly 60 years, you're doing something right. I don't care what you're selling, who you're selling it, and where you're selling it. If you've been in this for almost 60 years and you're still going strong, then that tells me you're doing something right. It's funny because as you're saying this, I'm reading this book on strategy and how businesses need to think strategically on how to last, long term. And when you guys said I did not realize you guys were open that. I knew you guys were a while, but I was born early '80s, so that's a while for me. I didn't realize it was going 2 decades strong by the time I was even born. So I'm thinking like, well, shoot, this is going strong. Like, so, no, to me that's amazing. And what you guys are saying, it rings so much true with history. It rings so much true with what's going on. I know you guys have to get going because, when we set this, you guys said, yeah, I didn't think you have a corporate meeting coming up after our discussion, so I won't keep you too much longer. What I will say, though, what I will ask, and I want you, to kind of answer as best you can, is moving forward, how can we continue making those strides to come together as a community? Because for me, one of the things that I would love to eventually get to, and I'm not sure if we're going to get to in our lifetime, but to where it's just a business. We don't have to have the modifiers. We don't have to have Latino owned or women owned or African American owned or whatever, or minority owned. It's just a business that you go to. We don't care about that. So I'm hoping that it gets done in my lifetime, maybe in my daughter's lifetime. What steps do you think we could take to go that route that can be done in our community to help get us closer to that sense of, I'm just gonna go out to eat. I don't care where it's a restaurant that serves good food.
Well, I think one of the things is educationally, and through our school system, is that we have to open the imagination of people to all the opportunities that are available. And we shouldn't cut off an opportunity by making it sound oppressive. I think one of the things that the restaurant industry suffers from is the definition of, you don't want to grow up to flip burgers, do you? So it's so opening up the imagination to what a sovereign self-owned business is like, okay, and what it entails, so that young people can move forward. Because within this country and within all business, you have everywhere from people with a second grade education to people with master's degrees and PhDs that have come into self-owned businesses and are able to make them work because of dream and passion for what they're doing. And so I think within our public education system, to make young people more aware of our diversity and what that diversity has contributed, especially in the business community, helps us move forward. Helps people to see that the barriers that have been there can be broken down, and people can move forward and do exciting things, and their creative thinking and what they imagine and envision can happen. And I think so incorporating those types of things in our educational system.
And if I might add to that, I think it's the psyche that we need to be attentive to our psyche. When you talk about small business, the underlying principle at work there is industriousness. We want our kids to be industrious. We want to be seen as being industrious. And the ways one of the ways that we are demonstrating our industriousness is through business. It's through business. And for us to employ business as something that employs we want our kids to be industrious. You don't have to be, there's something industrious about selling hamburgers. Just like there's the same thing that's industrious about becoming a lawyer. You have to be industrial. Businesses to see business, as you say, without color and all that, if you look at what is scientifically happening, it is the employment of human expertise, human passion, human resources to get us where we start to look at ourselves that way. We'll get away from black and white. Like you said, you're either doing the right thing or you're not. But industriousness and passion, have passion. See the African American people have passion that have played itself out through their businesses that they chose. Everybody doesn't want to be in the food service industry, but everybody wants to be industrious. Everybody wants to be somewhat accountable for their own existence. And when we get to where we're focusing on those things, whether it's barbecue means less, whether it's black or white, male or female means less. America's getting there, but we won't move any faster than America's moving. That's what I've learned in the last 40 years. America's understanding of the importance. Just a couple of figures here. We probably have ran over the last almost 55 years. We probably contributed to New Mexico's economy a conjecture, really about $50 million over those 60 some odd years. And we've hired people from New Mexico's employment bank. We probably hired 5,000 people. So blacks in businesses, people in business have effects on America's economy, America's psyche, America's understanding, and America's appreciation of WORK. And we really need to be seen as contributing to America's concept of being self-sufficient. That's not black or white, Native American or Hispanic. That's what it takes for a country to survive. And to be seen as major players, conscious players in that is really important. We're getting there. We're moving at the same pace that America is. We can't get in front of America with this thought pattern. If we could, we would have already done it, I'll tell you.
And I think small businesses, just to throw in, I think creativity is one of the things that you need, and you have to have a creative mind. And things like COVID and this pandemic bring to us the fact that you have to be creative in how you get your product out, and you have to be willing to change, and look at how you change and how you still keep making a good and productive product when things look like they're closing in. Not see the closing in, but see a creative path to overcome.
I love what you guys. I can sit here probably the rest of the afternoon or evening listening to you guys because I think you guys are fascinating. But I know you guys got to get going, and I don't want to keep our audience too terribly long. So we'll end the discussion by saying, letting people know how can they know more about what they can get at the barbecue house. How can they contact you guys?
Well, we got two locations in Albuquerque. On the East Central, between Eubank and Wonderful, 11,301 is our location on East Central. We've been up there for almost 40 years. We're also located in the North Valley here at 5209 4th Street. We're online. Mr. Powdrell's Barbecue House. Our website is mrpowdrellsbarbecue.com, and we're trying to be as visible as we can for the purposes not only perpetuating our business, but we try to draw labor from making ourselves visible. We try to be seen as a part of Albuquerque's commerce. And so we're engaged in chamber activities, African American in the Greater Chamber, Hispanic Chamber. I mean, you can find us. You can find us, but those are some real simple ways to get in touch with us. Thank you, man.
Well, Joe and Rita, thank you so much for taking some time with me. I know you guys are busy and sharing your thoughts, and this is such a valuable conversation to have on multiple levels. And I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to educate me and hopefully educate our audience. So for our audience, I highly recommend, if you guys have not had Mr. Powdrell's, get it. You guys do yourself a favor, try it. It's wonderful food. In fact, I'm gonna mention to my wife, we do a usually once a week we do what we call Fun Food Friday or Fun Food Saturday, just kind of lighten our cooking load and to for our daughter to go get something to eat. So I might suggest Bishop Powdrell this weekend or next weekend if she doesn't have an idea.
Thank you.
Because
We got legs, man. We got legs.
I'm gonna get a turkey leg. That's gonna be my thing. So I'm gonna get it. So thank you guys so much, our audience. Please check them out. Check out our other Beacons of the 505. Rita, Joe, thank you so much. Appreciate your
Can I
time.
say one more thing? Let me commend you for following your curiosity. That's really what levels the playing ground. When people decide to look at the playing ground, to see how level or unlevel it is, what you're doing right now makes a lot of difference. It really helps businesses like ours be seen as business, like you say. Because you're talking, what we're talking to you about is what is business, but it's only because you are seeking that kind of knowledge. So what you're doing is a part of the process. You keep that up, if I might add.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It means a lot coming from someone who's done the work like you with that experience. That means a lot more than I could say. Well, thank you guys so much, and I'm going to revisit you guys. We'll be talking soon. Thank you.
Hey.